Hi, I'm Peter Birch, and in this show we're going to take a closer look at what I like to call herping etiquette in Australia. Welcome to CrittaCam. Now, just before we leave the vehicle and head into the bush, there's a few things we need to be very conscious of. Australia has some of the most deadly, venomous land snakes in the world. For that reason alone, we need to make sure we carry a bandage and make sure you've kept up to date and you're very current with the use of the bandage and the bandage techniques. The second thing we're going to need, believe it or not, will be a torch. So you can get up underneath the crevices and have a look around there without even ripping things apart. The third thing you're going to need, depending on your skill level, will be a snake hook. Now, sometimes you can use a branch, some people like to carry a hook. It's all depending on your skill level, it doesn't matter at all. Now, it's also good to know exactly where you are, make sure you know what's around the area. That's the reason why I always say do a bit of research and get a field guide book. And probably the most important thing of all, never go alone. Always bring someone. I'm bringing my cameraman. For anything less than nothing, at least he can run and go get some help. So enough with that, let's do some herping. Sometimes it's good to look around because you will find man-made trash left in the bush just like this. And it's always good to use a hook to pull up those pieces because you just never know what's going to be lying underneath. So we're going to have a poke around here. Bits of timber, full of leaf litter. Nothing there. There's another one over here. Now, unfortunately, when you're doing a lot of herping, you're going to get skunked a lot of the time. Persistence. Just got to keep on going, see what else you can find. Now, fortunate for us, we've found a sheet of iron. Today is a little bit on the cooler side, and sheets of iron are really good for catching reptiles. It'll actually absorb the heat from the sun just like a reptile, and it retains the heat a lot longer. So your chances of finding something under everything else compared to the sheet of iron, well, the sheet of iron is the one I would go for 9 times out of 10. Hopefully, we're going to find something. But like I said before, 90% of the time you're going to get skunked when you go herping. Ugh, some big juicy spiders. Unfortunately, not this time. I'd like to welcome you to one of the coolest places I like to go herping. It's this nice little rock ridge that's tucked in right out of the way, and with plenty of overgrowth on the trail on the way in, will ensure that no one's been here for quite some time. We're gonna have a poke around and see what we can find. Let's go. Now, when I come into these areas, like I've said before, rock on dirt really won't lead to much. Rock on rock tends to lead to better success. So we'll have a bit of a look. And like I said, you know, there's little centipedes, there's ants, all sorts of weird, interesting things. But one of the most important things about lifting rock on rock is that we put it back exactly the way we found it. If you can't lift it without putting it back in the right spot, don't lift it at all. You're actually destroying an ecosystem. So we're gonna lift this guy up. Oh, that's a spider right there. Oh. And as you know, I really love spiders. Not. So here we go. Oh, there's a little gecko down here. There's a little hatchling, by the looks of it, Lejeur's gecko, a velvet gecko. Very cool. Come here, little fella. And like I said, we'll put the rock back. That way we won't squash him and we can stick him back under it later. These things are absolutely gorgeous little animals. Now, just like I said, the capture is one thing, but the release is probably more important. We want to make sure he gets back to where he was living without any harm. So that's the reason why we put the rock back and we let him climb back under, making sure he gets back home to where he was. Let's check out some more ridge. Now, like I said before, if the rock's way too big to move by yourself and put back comfortably, don't even try and lift it. In fact, if it's just like this, bring a torch. Very simple. All you want to do is see these animals anyway. So the whole idea of herping is to watch and study the animals in their natural environment. And occasionally you get to catch them, hold them, play with them a little bit, but then definitely let them go. There's plenty more rocks. Oh, another little Adura leisuri, better known as the Leisure's gecko, or most commonly known as the velvet gecko. Now, like I said before, by watching these animals in their natural environment, we can understand a bit more about them. This little gecko, who's just scurried back under the rock here, is feeding on termites. So he's come up under this rock where he knows the termites are, and he's feeding on them. That's something you didn't really know. So we'll put that back. I'll catch this little fella. Let him go back underneath. Under you go, buddy. He can go back to have his lunch. This is really awesome. Just like I remember it. This ledge here actually supplies the best place in this whole ridge for these animals to lay their eggs. So they're almost like a colony species. They all cluster and lay their eggs in the same spot. They get right in deep in here, up underneath, where the moisture level is perfect, and they lay their eggs. Being geckos, they only lay 2 eggs, and when you look at all the eggshells here, you can tell it's a very successful incubation spot. By looking and watching nature, we can observe and learn so much about these fascinating animals. That, for me, is awesome. I'm gonna get the torch out and have a bit of a poke right up under there. And you can see a ton of eggshells jammed right in there. The other cool thing is, if there's a good supply and a good population of geckos on this ridge, there's a chance there might be a predator. Now that's something cool. Never know what we're going to find. Oh! Unfortunately, this time it's a spider. And as you know, I really don't love these things. But that is a flat rock spider. They get right up underneath there, they wedge themselves in. They're not a fat spider as such, they're really thin and skinny, which enables them to wedge right under those rocks. So not only are you going to find geckos, you're going to find those really ugly looking things. We hit the jackpot. Under that rock there we found 2 different species of gecko and of course the flat rock spider. Ugh, the guy I really don't like. Now we found this guy, which is the southern leaf-tailed gecko, better known as the Phalaenopsis platurus. A very cool name. He's got this jagged shaped tail, almost looks like a leaf that's fallen off the tree. He's got these jagged, long, conical shaped spines that enable him to look a little bit more like a leaf and a bit more like a tree. They actually have claws, so they're an arboreal species, which enables them to be able to climb rocks and trees and all sorts of cool things. Now also under there was another Adura leisuri, or better known as the velvet gecko. These things are absolutely gorgeous. The reason why they get that name is because it does have this velvet looking way about it. It's got real tiny little scales, and they do have weird little feet. They actually have little sucker pads on their feet. Well, maybe not sucker pads as such, but tiny little scales all over their feet that enable them to be able to climb. And that's the reason why they love these rock areas. They get up under those rocks. They're hunting for bugs and insects that are climbing under there. And just like all geckos, they have external gonads. So we know that this little fella is actually a boy. Pretty awesome. There you go, mate. All right, let's see how we go here. Oh, the jackpot. A beautiful lapid. Let's see if we get him out of here. This is the Critophis nigrescens, or better known as the small-eyed snake. Beautiful steely grey colour, black head, and usually a pink or even a white belly. But just like its namesake, it has these tiny little eyes. Now this is a live-bearing species, can give birth up to about 8 live little babies, Each one can defend and look after himself once they are born. They typically eat things like what we've been finding all day, small geckos. They'll even eat the eggs of the geckos and other small skinks. That's the reason why they're living under these rocks, in the same environment as the geckos. Now, more importantly, like I said, it's an Australian elapid. It has front fangs. It is venomous. It has a myotoxic venom, and it is actually responsible for killing one human. So for this reason alone, we need to treat them with extreme care and caution. But what a beautiful little snake. Gorgeous little animal. They do grow a little bit bigger than this. They can grow up to 45 centimeters, but this is typically about the right size. And like I said before, something like this being able to kill a human, now that's pretty awesome. Let's give him the respect he deserves and let him go. Now that's one of the better finds I found today. I really thought we were going to get skunked. It's just starting to rain. Whoa, that is awesome. Come on, little fella. Making sure he gets back home, back to where he belongs. That's awesome. I hope you enjoyed this week's show about herping. Hopefully you can do it a little bit more responsible, get out in the wilderness, find some cool animals, and learn a lot more about nature. Please leave a comment below, hit me up on Facebook and Twitter. You've been watching CrittaCam.